I got this really interesting question, and I want to answer it on today's episode because I think it's really powerful, and I have some things that I've done to shift my energy that I think would be powerful to answer this question. So how do I get rich before the end of the year? That's the question. I want you to pay attention to the things that I think and the way that I see things as I go through and answer this question. So for me, I'm like, you got lots of time. And why would I believe that, 6.5 months left in the year is lots of time? Because I get to choose the perspective and the perception of time that I desire to have, and it makes that time real. So if I believe time is running out, I'm behind the 8 ball. I'm running out of it. There isn't enough. I will never be able to do it. So no matter what, I always am telling myself I have more than enough time. There is more time, lots of time, and that allows me to stay in that energy to start off with of abundance. There's an abundance of time. We know time isn't real. It is a human construction, and your experience with it will be what you choose. So I want to start off by saying that no matter where we're at in the year when you're listening, this podcast might be September by the time you're listening to it. By the time you find it, that's okay. You've got lots of time. That's what, I want to tell you. You have lots of time. So how do you get rich by the end of the year? I remember one of my prized possessions is I have a copy of Bob's You Were Born Rich book. And it's leather bound. It has my name on the bottom. And inside, he wrote me a note. And this was when I was quantum leaping my life. I had become rich within 7 months, 6 months. And he wrote me a note that says, "You have earned my admiration. Best wishes, Bob." And what was so beautiful about that book, and especially that copy that he gave me, I have another copy, but I don't want to read any other copy. I want to read that copy. The reason I'm bringing this up is because that book, You Were Born Rich, is a very, very powerful book. And the reason it's so powerful is the actual underlying assumption in the title of that book is that you were born rich, which means you already are. You already are rich. And yes, are we talking about amount of money you have in your bank account? Not necessarily, but you are born with a richness of life. You are born with richness in thinking and a richness in possibility and richness in potentiality, a richness in experience and a richness in gratitude and a richness in joy and a richness in happiness. And if you don't feel any of those things right now, it's because you're not aware of them. It's simply unawareness. But I think he also meant in that book with that title that you were born to be rich, that being rich is your birthright. I don't believe that any of us are meant to struggle. I don't believe any of us are meant to be in lack of limitation or to live in poverty. I truly do not believe that that is the experience we are meant to have here. We are meant to have the wholeness of a human experience. So there might be moments where we're living in more poverty and moments where we're living in more abundance, moments where we're sad and moments where we're happy. But I think the overall place that we are all meant to live and experience is in abundance and prosperity, is in wealth, and is in richness. So how do you then become rich before the end of the year? First of all, to realize that you already are. So if you don't think that, you are attached to an outcome. And when you are attached to an outcome, you're not going to be able to call it in. So attachment to being rich means you need it. It's important to you. You've put it up on a pedestal. I'm not rich and I want to be rich. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to get me to that rich place. And it comes from this lack and limitation. Instead, where I want you to be is, oh, my life is so good. I'm so rich. Like, look at how rich I am. I'm surrounded by richness. And I cannot wait for that next level of wealth, that next level of richness to come into my life. So I will always help you to change your perspective and your perception of your current reality first before we then go change the outer world. So now we're ready to change that outer world. Now we're seeing richness already here. So now let's turn it into a new level of wealth in your life. But it's going to take something that's very powerful. And every single time that I have called in a certain amount of wealth in a certain amount of time, I have used focused attention. And this is big. Many of us, including myself, have been so distracted by this family drama, this dating drama. We get distracted by the dramas of everyday life. And so when you're over here, your focused attention is over here on this person not calling you back, or the conflict that you had with your best friend, or this person that said this mean thing to you the other day, your focused attention is not upon getting rich before the end of the year. You're distracted. And so where you narrowly focus your attention is what will grow, and it's energy. So I love to think about the analogy of a spotlight. So if I'm up on stage and all of the stage lights are on and it's so bright, and the audience then sees everything. They see everyone, all the props. They can't focus on me. But when you put the spotlight on me and you turn off all the other lights, everybody's focused attention, their eyes go directly to me. This is what I want you to do. You've got to narrow your focus. You've got to turn the spotlight on to the thing that is the most important to you, which is getting rich by the end of the year. And so we can get rid of some of the distractions and the things that aren't serving you. So yeah, maybe you're still going to have a conflict with your best friend. You're going to let it go faster. You're going to forget about it. You're going to move on. You're going to fix it. So the important thing to understand then is that you're going to keep your focused attention upon what it is that you desire. And it doesn't mean that the dramas of life aren't still going to happen, but it's up to you to give them less of your attention, to stay there for a less amount of time, to move on quicker, to forgive easier, to let your ego go faster, and to move on, because you know that the more amount of time you spend over here on this drama is the less amount of time your energy is over here on making you rich before the end of the year. So people will say, okay, Kathleen, well, how do I do that then? How do I let it go? How do I get over it? You've got to reframe the story. So when you get in a conflict with somebody and your feelings are really hurt, your personal mind is activated. You're making it about you. And oftentimes the ego will say, well, I need to be right, so I'm going to keep this argument going. Well, when I'm over here and I want to build a multi-million-dollar business before the end of the year and get rich, I'm going to let this little argument go. You know what? You can be right. It's okay. We'll move on and move your focus back over here. It's all about perspective and it's all about perception. So perception is the meaning that you give it, the story that you're telling, but perspective is where you're coming from. So when I have a big vision and a purpose and a calling to serve people in a really, really big way through this work, I can't be getting thrown off by someone not returning my phone call. Like, I have a big mission here. I have big work to do. Like, I have to just let that go. And so I remind myself that there's so much more important things to life than the simple reactions and feelings that are being triggered in my ego, in your personal mind. So it'll take practice, but you can reframe it. You can tell a new story. You can just decide to let it go, and you can move your way out of things faster. I remember I had a one-on-one coaching call with Neil Donald Walsh. And on that call, he said something to me, which was beautiful. I said to him, sometimes, an emotion can be triggered in me. And I feel it so deeply because I'm such an emotional person. And like, how do I not get triggered emotionally? And he said, listen, no matter what level of awareness that you're at, no matter how much you know this work, your human's always going to be triggered. Your human is always going to have emotions. But he said, but what people know about me is that I get angry, but it lasts 3 to 5 minutes. Whereas me getting angry used to be a week and a half before. Now, 3 to 5 minutes and I've moved on. So that's what I'm talking about. Don't deny the experience that you're having or the emotion, but allow it to move through you. So ask, what am I feeling in this moment? What is the story that I'm telling about it? Do I want to believe it? Can I reframe it? How can I empower myself? And okay, let's move on and let it go. So I've learned to do this pretty quick. I am focused upon the growth in my business and in my brand in this moment right now. So I empower myself to let the dramas of life go. Neville Goddard says the dramas of life are a psychological one, which means they're only in the mind. And so when you realize that they are not real and they are not true and they are simply a delusion, they are simply a story, you can let it go a lot easier. But you're going to have to come outside of your mind to observe your mind to then change your mind. But focused attention is very powerful. Every single time I have made a decision and I've put my focus upon it, it grows. And then when I get distracted and I move my focus over here, this doesn't grow anymore. It slows down. So we want to keep that focused attention. It's called subjective control. To keep the control of the mind upon the thing desired, regardless of observed circumstances. This is the other piece. So even if my business appears to be the same this month, I have my focused attention and control upon growth in my business. I'm seeing my business growing. I'm seeing things getting better. I'm seeing the reality that I desire, not necessarily what I'm observing. So focused attention, but also a controlled imagination. How many people use their imagination in their business? Not a lot. And I know this to be true. I have said this time and time again. My number one business tool is my imagination, the ability to visualize. So most people will use their imagination when they do their business planning. So, okay, what do we want to do this year? What kind of outcomes do we want to see? What kind of difference do we want to make in the world? Let's create a plan. Let's cast a vision. We access it from the imagination. We select it. And then we move in the physical 3D world. And so you use your imagination to plan, to brainstorm, but then you don't use it again. That's not me at all. I'm always using my imagination every single day. I'm dreaming about what's next. I'm dreaming about what's available. I'm dreaming about how many people are going to enroll in my programs today, how this investment that I made over here is going to grow today, how my book sales are going to go. I'm constantly imagining the reality that I desire, and that in fact will call it in. But if you're not imagining something different, then what are you doing? You're focused upon the observed world. You're focused upon what you want. So a controlled imagination is key. Focused attention, controlled imagination. What if I'm changing my mind about what I want every day? Is that a controlled imagination? No. So I see this a lot where people will set themselves a goal. I want to make $10,000 a month. And then they get super inspired and they're like, no, I want to make 20. And then 2 weeks later, their business didn't grow at all. So then they change it to 10,000 a month. And then maybe they'll go to 15. And I like to think about it this way. Our outside world is a reflection of our inside world. And so it's like a projector. So imagine I go to a movie theater and I think I'm going to see a certain movie. Maybe it's a rom-com. And I sit down and, the person puts in the movie and it projects the film onto the screen that I've asked to see. That's manifestation, right? So what I'm visualizing in my mind will be projected in my 3D physical world, provided that I put the right disc in, the right movie, that I press play, and I keep it on that movie. But can you imagine going to a movie and the person running the machine, the projector, changes it to another one, and then they put in another one, and then they take it out 10 minutes later and they put in a new one, and they put in a new one? That is an uncontrolled imagination. You are constantly changing the image that you're projecting onto the screen, which is the 3D physical world. So I know exactly what I want, how much money I want, what that reality will look like, how many people I will be serving, what that reality looks like, what the charities look like that I'm creating, what the products look like that I'm selling. I know what it's like to celebrate all those things. I know the trips that I'm going on, everything. Because I'm projecting from my imagination to the 3D world. So we're going to focus our attention upon getting rich before the end of the year. We're going to imagine what that rich looks like. How am I allocating the funds? How am I moving that forward? And we're going to stay focused with that controlled imagination towards that. But there is this other piece. The law of attraction has the word action. So you are going to have to move differently. But if you have focused attention and you have faith and you have a controlled imagination and you've built the identity of somebody that's getting richer and richer every single day, you will express life based on those assumptions. So the law of expression says that you express yourself based on the consciousness with which you are in. So if you have a consciousness of, I'm rich and I'm getting richer, and by the end of the year, I'm going to be the richest I've ever been, you will naturally express life in that way, but you are going to have to do things differently. So for me, I'm going to record more podcast episodes. I'm going to add more content to the YouTube channel because people are loving the YouTube channel. I'm going to create new courses and programs. I'm going to open up my capacity to help more people. I'm not going to ask for 100 people on my calls. I'm going to ask for 1,000, 10,000, 100,000. And I'm going to act and behave in a way that a wealthier version, a more empowered version of myself would do. And so it doesn't mean that I'm going to work myself into the ground. I'm not going to hustle. I am not going to exhaust myself. I'm not going to stop doing the things I love, like going to the spa. I'm going to keep doing things like that. But I am going to do it in an effortless way. Effortless way. So the other thing that I will say too, so as you have focused attention, you have a controlled imagination, you're acting in faith, you're taking inspired action, I want you to notice your reactions to life. And here's one example, reacting to your bank account. I see this time and time again. I have coached a lot of high-level entrepreneurs, and this is one of the things that I have found that they find the most challenging is to not react to the amount of money in their bank account. So what does this mean, right? Your bank account. Bob told me before that money is simply a measuring stick, and I love that. And the reason I love that so much is because it simply tells you your growth and whether or not your growth is working. So if you want to operate on a new frequency of vibration, and you haven't made any more money, you're not operating on a new frequency yet. So the bank account will tell you essentially if you've moved, if you've changed, if you have hopped up to that frequency. But there's a gap between the day you decide you want your bank account to have this much money and the day that the bank account has this much money. Like, it doesn't happen effective immediately in this moment right now. There's a gestation period. And so there's going to be the bridge of incidents that's going to happen. The universe is going to align to fill your bank account up. But the moment you go and you look at that bank account and you say, oh no, it's not there, it's not working, you're in lack and limitation, you're no longer a vibrational match to the bank account filling up. So I've used my imagination to see overflow in my bank account. I've said, I would love to see $300,000 cash in my bank account. That would be so much fun. Okay, the bank account didn't have that, but I decided I'd love to see that. And so then what I do is I visualize seeing it. I visualize it growing and how that would feel and how I would react, the calmness, the excitement that I would have when I see that number in the bank. But I'm not going to go keep looking at it and being like, oh, it's not there yet. It's not there yet. It's not there yet. I'm going to let myself be in my imaginary world, in my la la land, up in dreamland, where I have $300,000 cash sitting in my bank account, and have faith that it's filling up, and have faith that it's always going to be there, and know that one day it will reach that, because that's what I'm calling in. So if you're somebody that's going to be reacting to your bank account negatively and you cannot control your reactions, stop looking. Stop looking. But if you can control the way in which you react to it, then that's a completely different situation. But there can be a way in which avoiding looking at your bank account comes from lack and limitation as well. So it's all about how you feel about the bank account and your willingness to observe it or not. So if you're avoiding looking at your bank account because you know it's going to be low and you know you're not going to be happy, you're in lack and limitation. But if you're not looking because you know it's growing and you don't need to see it, that's where I'm at. I don't see mine anymore. Like, that's a different energy than avoiding looking at it because you don't like the number. So if you're avoiding looking at it because you don't like the number, maybe you want to go look at it. Maybe you want to face the feeling that you have and start to visualize a different number. But the key is not to react to the number. And I actually use the same example in related to the number on the scale. So I have completely thrown out my scale. 100% without a shadow of doubt, I have no scale. I have no idea what that number is. I couldn't even tell you. Why did I do that? Why would I throw away my scale? Because I was attached to the number. I kept giving it meaning. It meant something. I would react to it. So every time I would get on it and it didn't tell me the number that I wanted, I felt like crap about myself, because the number on the scale for so many years in my life has had a meaning. Now that I've gotten rid of the scale, it doesn't have a meaning anymore. It's gone. And the first thing I did actually before I got rid of the scale, I actually converted it to kilograms instead of pounds, because I have no idea what kilograms is. It's like meaningless to me. I don't even know. Like, I don't know what's a good number, what's a bad number. I have no understanding of that. So sometimes you can do that with money too, is just convert it to a different currency so it has no meaning for you and you lose the reaction to it. But once you stop reacting to the number on the scale and you stop reacting to the number in your bank account, you've moved on to the creative plane, where you're now allowing yourself to be a vibrational match and to call it in. But you have to pay attention to the feedback. If you are not feeling any different, if you're not thinking any different, if you're not doing anything different and you are the exact same person as you were at the beginning of the year, I would ask the question, what am I doing to become rich before the end of the year? It's all about personal growth and transformation. This is why I talk about spirituality meets personal growth and development. This is about you working on you and being spiritually aligned and connected and guiding source energy towards the goal of becoming rich before the end of the year. And I would just say, what if you could become rich well before the end of the year? What if that's possible to do that? Anyways, I hope that answers the question. I hope that it is helpful. There's a lot to go over there, so you might want to watch it a couple of times, but it's focused attention, controlled imagination, faith, taking action, and stop looking at reacting to your bank account. Hope that helps. And remember that the limit does not exist.